Every empire believes its money is strong. Every government believes the promises it makes will last forever. But every time, history proves them wrong. From Rome to France, from the Confederacy to modern-day Lebanon, people woke up one morning to the same surprise. Their savings had become worthless. Their wages meant nothing. And their futures had been taken away by systems they believed were powerful and secure. Collapse is not rare. In fact, collapse is the rule. The real question is not whether financial systems collapse or not. The real question is, when they collapse, how will you be affected? The most dangerous financial mistake is the illusion of permanence. We look at our bank accounts, we look at our national currency, and we assume they are unshakable. But money is not unshakable. Money cannot be as solid as a rock. Money is trust, and trust can disappear overnight. That is exactly why history is so brutal and so valuable. Every collapse leaves behind lessons we are meant to understand. It shows what truly preserves wealth and what simply turns to dust. And if you look closely, you'll notice this. The survivors were not the ones who trusted blindly. They were the first ones to question. Consider the Byzantine Empire. It is usually remembered as the eastern half of Rome that survived for 1,000 years after the fall of the Western Empire. At the center of its economy was the gold solidus. It was so strong and so trusted that merchants from Europe to the Middle East and Asia accepted it without question. For centuries, it functioned as the near-global reserve currency of the medieval world. One can't help but wonder. They had seen how Rome destroyed itself by repeatedly debasing the silver denarius. We've told this story before. They should have learned the lesson, but they didn't. Centuries later, the Byzantines made the same mistake. This time, not with silver, but with gold. They began reducing the purity of the solidus. They thinned it slightly. They mixed in cheaper alloys. At first, no one noticed. Then something suddenly broke. Trust. A coin that had once been the foundation of Mediterranean trade became nothing more than a political illusion. Debasement collapsed not just the currency, but the system and the trust behind it. The Byzantine economy lost the power it once had. So what survived? Not paper promises, not government guarantees. Those who held real gold beyond the empire's reach, those who owned land, those who prepared quietly, they preserved their wealth. Everyone else watched their money disappear. This is history's first great lesson. Governments cannot resist the temptation to dilute money. And when they do, real value finds a place to escape. Places they cannot imitate. But not every collapse comes from governments manipulating money. Sometimes everything is overturned by the unexpected, like the Black Death that struck Europe in the mid-14th century. Between 1347 and 1351, nearly half the population died. Cities emptied. Villages vanished. Trade came to a halt. But here's the interesting part. The economic consequences were not purely destructive. When people became scarce, labor became valuable. Survivors demanded higher wages. Land and food became abundant compared to people. Those with money, silver, or labor they could sell gained bargaining power, perhaps for the first time in their lives. Homes were abandoned. Fields were left unplanted. Land that was once priceless sold for next to nothing. If this sounds familiar, it's not a coincidence. We lived through a modern version of this during COVID. Supply chains collapsed. Governments printed trillions. Those with liquidity accumulated assets. Those living paycheck to paycheck were left behind. Pandemics redistribute wealth. They always have. Crises reward those with reserves. They punish those without. And this teaches us one thing. There is no such thing as too big to fail. In the 1340s, Florence was Europe's financial center. Major banks like Bardi and Peruzzi lent money to kings. But when King Edward III of England stopped paying, everything collapsed. Banks failed. Deposits vanished. The city descended into chaos. The lesson is painful but clear. Size is not safety. Reputation is not protection. This story has repeated itself for centuries, from Florence to Lehman Brothers in 2008 to Lebanese banks in 2019. Today, Lebanon is the living example. Banks locked their doors, accounts were frozen. The currency lost more than 90% of its value. Lifelong savings were wiped out. So, who survived? Those who did not blindly trust banks. Those with gold, property, or options abroad. The truth is this: the money in your bank is not yours. It is a loan you've given to an institution that can choose not to repay you in a crisis. History shows us this. Collapses are both disasters and opportunities. If you are unprepared, they are destruction. If you are prepared, they are opportunities to buy what others are forced to sell cheaply. But protection is not only about what you own, it's also about what you can do. Money can become meaningless. Production does not. Those who bake, repair, produce, transport, they don't just survive crises, they rise. Because every crisis is a transfer, from those who trust to those who prepare, from paper to reality, from those who wait to those who build. It has always been this way. The question is not whether everything will collapse. It will. The question is, when it does, what will you be holding? If this gave you a different perspective, subscribe.